Yes, enough silliness already, isn't it, Ted?
Yes, that's enough silliness.
Good boy, Ted. You go down there and twiddle the knobs like you always do. Meet Terry Simpson. I think that's his name, Terry Simpson. Ted suggested to me that I might do a little expose on Terry because, well, Ted's been having a bit of a pitch battle, to be fair, with Terry on the old platform over there, formerly known as Twitter, these days known as X, as I'm sure you all know. You'll find Ted's address to follow his antics over there, wending its way across the bottom of the screen as we speak, among other things that you'll find down there if you actually care to look. I don't just put these banners up there for fun, by the way, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, staff, super intelligent shades of the of the colour sky blue pink. They're actually there for information. Ted is indeed number one among the bears. Very, very well spotted in that regard. Hello, Cecile. Good to see you, my friend. Love you. There's nothing you can do about it. First in the house was Field Marshal Dave of the Meat Militia. Cheers, Dave. Hope to see you here in Pimbatia again before we all get too much older. Speaking of getting too much older, Terry here, well, has got somewhat older even than he is here. This is a video of his that was recorded some 14 years ago, it seems, and posted to YouTube's some 14 years ago. However, it's still relevant because I'll tell you why. Terry is still singing the same song 14 years later that he was singing 14 years ago when he made this video. He's still wrong. He's still unequivocally, demonstrably wrong. He's still clearly arrogant beyond belief while suffering one of the worst cases of Dunning-Kruger I've seen in a while. And I say one of them because there are so many, aren't there? Staff, members of the Meat Militia. So many arrogant, imbecilic Dunning-Kruger sufferers out there that it just begars belief, to be fair. Anyway, for our entertainment and edification today, we're going to deal with one Terry Simpson, who for some reason imagines himself to be a remotely competent commentator on cardiovascular pathophysiology, despite not being a cardiovascular pathophysiologist. He also does enjoy a good trope, I'll give you that. He likes to post the same mindless, vacuous tropes on the old platform over there, formerly known as Twitter, which really only affects stupid people who are stupid enough to read these tropes and go, oh, that sounds like he knows what he's talking about. Unfortunately for Terry, he doesn't know what he's talking about whatsoever, and we're about to establish that. To be fair to Terry, Ted did make multiple, I'm told by Ted, he did make multiple invitations for Terry to front up, to defend his thesis, his position statement in the real world. And, well, clearly, Mr. Simpson here lacks the intestinal fortitude, the testicular fortitude, and the robustness of a primary axial skeleton, frankly, to front up to such a thing. I think he knows that he's been fooled. He's been hoodwinked by a small yellow teddy bear that likes to say words shorter than wheelbarrow over there, and he was thinking he was probably engaging with someone who was less capable than Ted is. See, Ted taught me everything I know, frankly. Ted's been with me since the beginning. Well over half a century now. Ted's been my guiding light and inspiration. Haven't you, Ted? Good boy. Ted's busy twiddling the knobs as usual. That's what he does. Sometimes he even does it effectively, don't you, Ted? Yeah. Okay, so other factors about Terry, just for fun. Terry's self-description there on his X platform profile claims to have 1.5 million followers on social media somewhere. He may well do. I mean, that might well be correct. I don't know that it isn't. However, the two major platforms that people tend, well, it's sensible people that want to actually get a message out there, the two platforms they tend to hang out on really are pretty much this one, for rightly or wrongly, and it's wrongly, but that's how it is, for now. And the other one is IG. Well, it turns out that Terry has about 10,000 subscribers, followers on each platform, many of whom sound pretty botty, or at least talk out of their botties, don't they? This particular video, 14 years ago, it's had 14 years to garner views here on the YouTubes, and it's been so wildly popular that in 14 years, this video from Terry Simpson has garnered, get this, 433 views, and that includes this one that we're about to go through. So there it is. Oh, there he is. There's Terry. Good to see you, Terry. Tell you what, mate, if you're of a mind, why don't you just send me a message that you're of a mind and we can deal with this face-to-face, instead of me basically lambasting you for your lack of actual competence in this field, that being science, statistical inference, epistemology and such. And we can do that. But until I do that, though, we can make a start on your wildly popular video from 14 years ago that's had 433 views here on YouTube's. You're looking well, by the way. You're looking well. That's good to see. Nice to see that 14 years hasn't... Yeah. Find me on your computer. The only way into the studio here, Terry, to deal with this face-to-face is for me to invite you. If you'd like that, that would be fine. I'll tell you what. I can send you a link. All you need to do is send me an email. My email address is very easy to find. It's on the front page of the About tab on my channel, but I'll give it to you. It's Bart, B-A-R-T, K-A-Y, N for November, Z for zebra, at gmail.com. I'll open it right now so that I can see whether or not you want to send that to me, and we can deal with that face to face. Ted tells me, however, that you're probably, one of these Dunning-Kruger suffering, overly self-confident individuals who really won't be able to do anything except cite the tropes we've all heard 1,000 times already and already dealt with as many times, frankly. Anyways, we can wait for that. And while we wait for that, my email page is now open, Terry. So if you do want to send me an email saying that you'd like to have a discussion, we can start with what we both agree on. Couldn't we, Terry? We could talk about how, well, number one, how vastly incompetent is Peter Attia. Not really a Dr. Peter Attia, that is. Sure, he's got an MD qualification, but he's not qualified as anything, frankly, actually. And we could also talk about the fact that he's a disgraceful individual, couldn't we? We could agree on that, and then we could talk about some science and about how it is that you actually don't have any grasp on that whatsoever. That'll be fun. You sent me your email, you say. You sent me your email, did you, Terry? Well, my email tab is open right now, and I'm not seeing an email from you, Terry, at all. Once again, BART.KAY.NZ stands for New Zealand, Terry, at gmail.com. Okay, that's where it is. That's where you send the email, and you can jump in. All right. Yeah. So that's what you do. You send me an email, and I will invite you into the studio. That's how it works, sunshine. All right. Very good. In the meantime, while we're waiting for you to actually get your act together and send me that email to my email address that I've just given you, and so has Dave. There you go, Dave. Thanks for that. Appreciate that. That helps. There it is for you right in text, Terry. So it shouldn't be too difficult for you to get it together. In the meantime, while we're waiting for that, we can make a start on your video from 14 years ago. But before we do that, I think I should probably make mention that today, of all days, is New Zealand Day. Others call it something else, using a different language. Oh, yeah, okay. There's an email from Terry. I am here, it says. Alrighty. Well, let me tell you what. I'm going to send you a reply right now, Terry, where I'm going to send you an invitation to drop in live, and we can have this discussion live. Then I don't have to lambast you on a video. I can lambast you to your face. That'll be awesome. All right. So invite somebody in, copy the link, copied, right-click, paste. There it is, Terry. There's the link. Anytime you like, you just pop in and we'll have a chat about, well, cardiovascular pathophysiology, the demonstrably, unequivocally, absolutely false lipid hypothesis, your lack of comprehension of the scientific literature, clearly. And we can also talk about what a disgraceful, subhuman imbecile, really, is Peter Attia. That'll be awesome. So we'll see you in a few minutes. Anyways, so it's New Zealand Day. New Zealand Day, so it is. There's not really a lot to celebrate, though, in New Zealand, frankly, except that the independent sovereign nation of Pimbatia exists within that formerly great nation of New Zealand, now known as the totalitarian communist state of Ardunistan, even though Ardunistan is gone. Terry, welcome to the show. Welcome to the show. Good to see you. Let's just check the comms, make sure we can hear you. 1 2 1 2.
How about that? That work?
There you go. We can hear you. That's great. All right. So we can get rid of your video.
Happy New Zealand Day.
Oh, thank you very much. It's well, as I say, there's not really much to celebrate here in New Zealand. It's turned into a communist totalitarian nightmare, frankly, like many parts of the world. Nonetheless, we battle on. Here, where we live, I've actually bought a ranch about 15, 16 months ago, Terry, and we've decided to secede from New Zealand, and we're going to be the independent sovereign nation of Pimbatia, named for my lovely partner and myself. Ted didn't get a mention. He was very annoyed that he didn't get a mention, frankly.
I visited New Zealand once. Was down there with a health group from Alaska helping some of the people there. And while I was there, I visited this lovely island off of Auckland that had 32 wineries.
Yeah, that would be Waiheke Island. Oh, where have you gone, Terry? Sorry.
It was great because in Auckland, the traffic was horrible, but they have a great medical center. And you can just be on that island. If something happens, you get in a helicopter and off you go.
That's right, Waiheke Island. We also had to get a helicopter here not that long ago. A close member of the family had a medical emergency, Terry, unfortunately, about 2 weeks ago. We're about 45 minutes drive from the nearest town, and that was actually skids on the ground here, the rescue helicopter, with paramedics, 15 minutes. Very impressive it was.
Awesome.
So well done those folks. Anywho, let's get to it. We can start with the areas in which we clearly agree, if you like, Terry, that being that, number one, nobody with more than 3 brain cells should probably take medical advice from Peter Attia. Would you agree on that?
Yes.
Right. Or indeed.
I mean, there is a pattern here in my world. I've been a surgical residency program director. And, when people don't finish a residency, it's for one of 2 reasons. Either they were fired.
Mm-hmm.
You have to say, or they left. And when you leave in the last year of your residency, that's pretty odd. You have 1 year to go to where you're going to get your residency, and then you can get board certified. And he didn't get that. He popped out. He did all sorts of other weird stuff that I don't think doctors would do. And then all of a sudden he found Mr. Epstein and all of a sudden had billionaire clients. I'm not sure how that exactly works or implying, but and most of the stuff he gives, if you've read his book, which I have, sadly I bought it, but 90% of it is what we all say: get your sleep, get your rest, eat a reasonable diet, take your medications that you need, and go for it. And then he always adds a little extra. Well, let's give you rapamycin. It's like, we don't have any human studies on rapamycin for longevity. We have them on, it works really well with yeast. It works really well with worms. Why would you take a medicine that is an immunosuppressant to think you can live longer if you're not a worm or a yeast? So.
That's right. Indeed. So we agree on that too as well, Terry, the need for an externally valid model from which to base cause and effect claims then.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that he does that. And once you're off the guardrails like that, you're off the guardrails. And my pointed out today, it's like you have two people, first of all, longevity isn't a space. I mean, there isn't a board certification in longevity. And it's what primary care doctors do every day. When we came down to help the Maoris help with their healthcare system, our healthcare system in Alaska, you can get and see your primary care doctor that day. I know you're not maybe terribly familiar with our American healthcare system, but a lot of times,
I'm quite okay. Yep.
it kind of sucks.
Yeah.
It's hard to get in. It's expensive. You don't get all the value for your money. And so the Maoris were looking at our healthcare system we have in Alaska for our I'm an Alaska native for them, and we've been trying to help them with that for a number of years. That's how he came to your country. But anyway, back to Peter Attia. He's just it's pretty bad. And the more you see about it, you just sort of wonder why would people listen to this guy?
Yes, I've actually been saying that, Terry, for some time. I mean, Peter Attia is one of these characters who presents himself as being the great I am, the great expert on all fields, when actually he's not an expert in any field. He's made comments about exercise physiology repeatedly, showing also repeatedly that he does not understand exercise physiology at all. He's made a bunch of comments which agree with a lot of comments you make or have made, including recently on X, about cardiovascular pathophysiology, showing that he doesn't understand that either. And I'm going to contend during this discussion, Terry, that neither do you. We'll get to that, though. And, more than happy for you to prove me wrong. So far you have, Terry. I must say you are the first person in the world who has publicly proven me wrong on anything. So congratulations on that. You've proven that you do have the courage of your conviction to actually front up.
Oh.
So you've proven both me and Ted wrong, because Ted also has suggested that you lacked that courage. So Ted will have to eat some humble pie, as will I on that. However, in terms of cardiovascular pathophysiology, you're talking to someone that gets it. So, we can go there. How does that sound?
Sure.
All right. So basically, why don't you give us your contention? It seems, correct me if I'm wrong. If I'm at all mischaracterizing what you've been saying ostensibly, what you've been saying is you believe that at least aspects of, if not the concept of the lipid hypothesis is correct. You believe that some aspect of lipids, the lipoproteins, are causal artifacts in atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease, and that, what am I talking about, basically, or anybody else who denies this so-called established fact scientifically? Is that correct, or is there something you'd like to add to that?
Well, we're sort of beginning on generalization, so
sure. Well, that's where we start. We'll start general, and we can get to specifics. Yeah. Absolutely.
So let me kind of go back to where I am and what my background is, so that you know that, because I don't know what you know about me. Oh, by the way, I don't really do much on YouTube, so I'm rather unfamiliar with the forum. I'd like to get more involved here, but I have one, and this doesn't matter, but I have about 300,000 followers on Instagram, 1.1 million on TikTok, another 200,000 on Facebook. You may have seen my personal stuff on there as opposed to my professional stuff. So
okay, all right. So that's where your subscriber base and follower base is. Congratulations on that. They're good numbers.
Well, try to give good information.
I'm going to suggest, Terry, that perhaps you could do better.
Okay,
today.
That would be fine. I'd be happy to learn.
Well, it doesn't seem like that from the exchanges you had with this bloke.
Well, that bloke was,
Well, that bloke's a character, though, Terry. You got sucked in, didn't you?
Sometimes it's just too much fun, and I have way too much time to do with this when I should be doing
clearly
other things.
That's right. And I think Ted might have mentioned that.
Well, he may not. He may have. I don't recall.
Yeah. Anyway, there we go. Right. Okay. So let's generalizations. Right. So did I mischaracterize your position at all? Do you believe the lipid hypothesis, or a part of it at least?
When people say the lipid hypothesis, let me just sort of give you the 15-cent view. When you have the LDL molecule, which has the apolipoprotein B on it, that is the thing that gets sucked into the endothelial cell. And if there's too many of them, broadly speaking, it throws it out back into the alley, which is the lining between the endothelial cell and the muscular cell. And that's where the process begins. And that's where the begin and the buildup is of the molecule. The macrophage will come in, turn it into a foam cell, trying desperately to recycle it. And over time, that area starts to grow. And it grows and grows and grows, and can either obstruct or, in a more dangerous situation, acutely go out, causing a plug in the artery and developing either an acute coronary event or events elsewhere.
Okay.
That's the
all right. Okay, great. Can I suggest to you, Terry, that is an awesome story? However, next time I would suggest much more emphasis on the dragons, probably a bit less killing of all the main characters right up front, because that was a bit, what do you do next? And maybe have a decent ending after 8 seasons, because that really was quite disappointing as a story.
Okay.
Basically, what you just did there is you gave us a trope, you gave us a story, and you did say you were going to be general. Okay, fine. However, the holes in that story are more numerous and vastly larger than what you would find in your average kitchen colander. Okay? Let's talk about determinism here, because, basically at the end of the day, the term that is thrown about by the allopathic community and certain aspects of the academic community as well is a cause and effect inference, or indeed a direct claim, this causes that. LDL, or these days, now they've changed the goalposts again, and now they're saying it's the ApoB100 protein, specifically that is atherogenic, and they will give a similar story to the one that you've just troped out there. Yeah?
Go ahead.
Right, okay. Let me ask you some questions. Where do atherosclerotic lesions develop, Terry?
They develop in the intima between the endothelial cell and the muscular cell.
Okay, let me ask the question more clearly. What geographical regions within the vascular tree do these lesions occur?
Well, you can get atherogenic lesions throughout the body. Typically, you will find them at bifurcation points in arteries, or in bends in arteries, or where the flow disrupts it. But that's typically
right. So let me correct you there straight. Sorry, Terry. Let me correct you there straight away on something there that wasn't correct. You said that atherosclerotic lesioning occurs throughout the body. That is not correct, is it?
Well, in terms of the blood, in terms of the arteries, yeah.
Okay, well, that's not correct either, is it, though, Terry?
No, that's quite correct. You'll find them.
No, it isn't, Terry. Sorry. One of us is a cardiovascular pathophysiologist.
And one of us does vascular surgery, so tell me where we are.
Okay, where we are is understanding, number one, that atherosclerotic lesions do not occur throughout the body. Neither do they occur uniformly or evenly throughout the...
I didn't say they were uniform.
You said throughout the body.
Right, throughout the body doesn't mean they're uniform. Right, they're not
fine, I'll give you that, but still it's not correct, is it? Because they don't.
If we were to take a blood vessel and open it up in someone who has atherosclerosis, we will find subintimal atherosclerotic bodies. We will find more in some places in the arterial system.
Right, and where do we find them typically, Terry? And I too have been inside these bodies. I've had a look myself as well.
Good.
Yeah. I do actually have some background here, quite significant. That's why I'm going to press you on this until we get this correct, because you are not giving, while what you're saying is somewhat ambiguous.
Well, arterial bifurcations are, so typically we see a lot in arterial bifurcations. For example, when we do carotid endarterectomies, we find them typically at the bifurcation of the internal carotid and common carotid artery.
Right.
At coronary artery branch points, we see them. At renal artery origins, we see them. We see them in some of the large elastic arteries, like in the abdominal aortic, we will see them. We'll see them in the aortic arch.
Right.
We'll see them in popliteal arteries a lot. We will see them obstruct things like the posterior tibular dorsalis pedial arteries a lot.
Very
where
good.
Where they're not common.
Yes.
Are, if we make an AV fistula for someone who has dialysis, we will see them in the vein. But if we don't arterialize the vein, we won't see them. We're not going to see them in pulmonary arteries unless the patient has pulmonary hypertension. And it's pretty untypical, except for the abdominal aorta, to find them in distal or straight arterial segments.
Correct.
So our atherosclerosis loves curves, branches, turbulence, but not typically straight, fast, flowing pipes.
Right. Now,
is that a little more specific for you?
That's better. So what we are saying there, without saying it there, is that atherosclerotic lesions do not occur in veins in situ.
Right, unless they've been arterialized.
That's right. Correct. In which case they are an artery. So I'm still correct. Yes?
Yeah.
Right. Okay, good. Secondly, you've spoken on the X platform, at least, a number of times about these atherosclerotic lesions being full of lipids, full of cholesterol. Am I right? And that's what you've said? Or did I read that wrong?
No,
they're not, Terry, are they?
When we remove a plaque, when we take out a plaque from, like when you do an endarterectomy, whether it's in an ileal artery or whether it's in a carotid artery, that's what we will find. We will find those lipid lesions.
Okay. So have you seen, and we're not going to have a citation war today because frankly, Terry, the science regarding cause and effect relationships in any hard health outcome in human beings is so laughable that it's laughable. However, have you seen these several papers that have come out in the last decade or so talking about the histology of the atherosclerotic lesions, their actual makeup, percentage-wise, proportion-wise, and what they really are made up of?
Well, typically we see a lot of I mean, I can just tell you what we see. I don't know what papers you're referring to. So before going into whatever papers you're referring to, what we see when we look at atherosclerotic plaques, when I take them down to the pathologist's offices, we're going to always see the macrophages. We'll see, in the extralipid core, we're going to see cholesterol clefts. We're going to see T cell lymphocytes. We're going to see, type 1, type 3 collagen. We're going to see the for the cap. And
okay, also that's great.
And sometimes we'll see microcalcifications.
Okay,
and ones that are active, we're going to see.
Sure. Okay.
When you turn on what we're not going to find is fat like adipose tissue or dietary fat deposits. Some people think that's not true.
Correct, it's not.
And what we will find is a high degree, especially in those ones that have been exceedingly active, a high degree of
right. Okay, so once again, we need to make a discrimination between the lipid core, which absolutely is lipid rich. That's why it's called a lipid core, and the overall makeup of the histology of the entire lesion, the tissue, all of it.
Okay.
And then we need to talk about the proportion of how much of that is lipid. But before we even get to that, because it's actually not very much, Terry, most of the lesions are scar tissue and thrombotic material, not lipids.
In what area? So when we're talking about a coronary artery event, you're right. Most of those lesions are going to be platelets, platelet caps, fibrin, fibrinogen, and they're not going to be lipids that are out there, but it is the fibrin cap that has, the classic teaching is the fibrin cap is small, it breaks free, and you get an immediate or very quick clot. So when we look at that, when we look at the coronary artery that has had the rupture, that's what you will see. You will see a highly inflammatory.
Great, awesome, fine, yes, no problem with that whatsoever, Terry. Let's go here, though. The fact that atherosclerotic lesions in certain areas, most particularly, have a lipid core, okay, and you've told us some of the things that are found there. You've mentioned some of the various things that we find in these cores, and you've been correct in saying what you find in those things, yes. When you turn on the television and you see the latest forest fire, invariably in the footage, there are fire crews, helicopters with dump buckets and things running around and doing their business, aren't they?
Yeah.
Right. Did those fire crews cause that fire?
Well, every now and then you have a bad arsonist there. You have to admit.
Okay, that was a pretty facile answer to a pretty decent challenge, wasn't it?
No, you're going through the fireman hypothesis. We see this there, but that's
not a hypothesis, Terry. Firemen are found at fires. That's a fact. It's also not a hypothesis that association cannot establish causality under any circumstances. It's the first thing you learn in the first half an hour of your first undergraduate degree, or should. Did you not learn that?
No, I think in the first half hour we were learning other things, but go ahead.
Clearly you were, okay? Let me give it to you now, and you can write it down and underline it 3 times and put it in your study book for later if you like, Terry. Association cannot establish causality, period.
Agree.
Right. So why tell us,
okay. But
why give us the implication that lipids are somehow important in the etiology, cause and effect of atherosclerotic lesions?
Well, let me ask you this. If you don't have an atherosclerotic lesion there, are you going to get a coronary artery thrombosis? I mean, you could.
Well, it's not impossible. There are many things that can cause a thrombus.
When we look at the vast majority of coronary artery disease, what is in the wall of the artery? It's not
in the wall of the artery. It depends on the developmental stage of that particular person's atherosclerotic disease burden, if indeed it is atherosclerotic, the disease burden that that person carries.
Right.
And what you have said is that there is a lipid core there in an advanced or relatively advanced lesion, and I'm agreeing with you, there is. What I'm now saying to you, though, Terry, is, so what? Because, I mean, you could say, well, if the lipids weren't there, the lesion wouldn't be there. You'd be wrong, but you could say that. In the same way that I could say, well, if we didn't have an endothelial lining, then we wouldn't have disease of the endothelial lining. It's just as ridiculous, isn't it?
No, it's not ridiculous at all, because atherosclerotic
Why is it not?
disease, well,
explain to me why that's not ridiculous, Terry.
We get rid of the endothelial lining when we do an endarterectomy. The bottom line is that if you don't have the atherosclerotic lesion there, that's what the main source of atherosclerotic disease is, that lesion. Now, I think, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think what you're saying is, maybe I should just let you say it. Go ahead. I'll let you say it.
What I'm saying, Terry, is there is no data extant anywhere in the peer-reviewed literature which experimentally establishes a cause and effect relationship between any of the lipids or any subfraction of the lipids or any specific lipoprotein of any kind and atherosclerotic disease, cause and effect in human beings. The data to support that hypothesis does not exist. It is a theology. And it's ridiculous.
So people who have familial hypercholesterolemia like myself, who have lifelong LDL, ApoB, all of my family members except for me, because I and one other had early MI strokes and death, or people who have PCSK9 loss of function variants, have dramatically less atherosclerosis, or that the ApoB gene variants attract risk for LDL-C, that genetic seems to establish a directionality. You raise the ApoB, more plaque; lower ApoB, less plaque.
Okay.
Right.
Let me ask you this then, Terry. If I went into any elementary school in any country and I measured the mathematical ability via a validated test of every student in that elementary school between the ages of 5 and 10 years of age, and I correlated that with the length of their foot from the base of their big toe back to the base of the calcaneus, what am I going to find?
What are you going to find?
I'm going to find a very powerful, very predictable, very reproducible, very strong relationship between the length of those students' feet between 5 and 10 years of age and their mathematical ability, aren't I?
You may. I've never checked.
I'm not may. That's what I'm going to find, because children's feet grow quite a bit between 5 and 10 years of age, don't they, Terry? So does their mathematical ability.
Okay, and?
So does that mean we can stop wasting? Does that mean we can stop wasting money training math teachers and instead genetically alter children to have bigger feet, and that will solve the numeracy problem? Will it, Terry?
Right. I mean, we have do this and we see this again and again, but when you have human genetics on multiple levels showing the lifelong LDL ApoB leading to early myocardial infarction, stroke,
No,
and death.
you just, hang on, Terry. Hold the phone there. You just said leading to. That is a cause and effect claim. You cannot support that claim. There is no cause and effect data extant anywhere in the literature. No matter how many times you say there are,
how about
you
the models
just said leading to.
When we knock out LDL receptors in mice or rats.
Okay, haven't we already covered that in this discussion, Terry?
No, not really.
Yeah, we have. We just said that an animal model is not externally valid to apply to a human being. We said that earlier on this call. I'm sure we did, unless I'm mad.
We certainly talked about worms and rapamycin.
Well, there you go. You see,
but
nothing that comes out of my mouth is a mistake, Terry. Every place I lead you to will lead you to the same place where I'm going to absolutely tear you to bits here. I'm just forewarning you. I'll do it as politely as I possibly can.
I think you were ignoring the genetics.
I'm not ignoring anything, Terry. I am so well versed in this area that it doesn't matter where you go, you are going to end up being shown up for a person who has been trained to think a certain way and is dutifully thinking that way, but cannot actually engage with the science to support what it is that you're saying, because the science to support what you're saying does not exist, no matter how many times you say it does.
You want to ignore the animal and mechanistic models, is that's what you're saying?
What I'm saying is let's talk about human beings. Let's talk about human beings. Yes.
I understand that, but I think that an LDL receptor in a mouse, an LDL receptor in a human being would share the same genetic makeup, would probably produce the same thing. And if we knock out LDL receptors in mice or in rats, what happens to them?
They die.
What happens to them in terms of atherosclerosis?
If you knock out the receptor, the atherosclerosis gets vastly worse, vastly more quickly.
Okay.
However, the question is, why do you think that occurs, Terry? Why do you think that occurs?
Well, that's part of our deal. And what happens when we lower ApoB by statins or ezetimibe or PCSK9 inhibitors or bempedoic acid? Don't we get a proportional?
There is a mild. If you're going to ask a question, let me answer it. There is a mild associated.
I'll let you answer yours. Go ahead.
Okay.
Sorry.
There is a mild and not even really particularly meaningful, but there is a mild associated change in incidence reported on secondary events in response to PCSK9 inhibitors and in HMG coenzyme A reductase inhibitors, statins. However, that is not a cause and effect relationship because of any effect on those factors. That is a serendipitous effect born of the fact that those particular pharmacological interventions happen to be anti-inflammatory. It's nothing to do with cholesterol or lipids.
Even though the cholesterol and lipids go down.
That's right.
So what about the children who have high levels of LDL and have heart attacks pre-teen?
Well, the reason for, if you're talking about it's roughly 1 in a million in the population who have that massively rare complete knockout of the LDL receptor in human children, analogous, if you like, to the mouse model where it's knocked out in a research mouse model.
My monitor for some reason just went out. It's back.
Okay, all right. Did you hear what I said though?
I heard what you said.
Okay, good, right. So we're talking about, either the mouse model, if you like, the complete knockout for the research model mouse, or the 1 in a million children that have a complete knockout genetically of that receptor, and they develop vast atherosclerosis very early in life, and their life expectancies are vastly reduced.
Okay.
Yes, that is a known phenomenon. What do you think the cause of that atherosclerotic disease burden and that early death is, Terry? Because it's not the cholesterol.
Oh, what do you think it is? Do tell me. I'm waiting to hear.
Well,
I'm waiting for your knockout.
Number one, if you don't have an LDL receptor, which will transport the LDL or help transport the LDL into the cells where it's desperately needed, those cells are unable to repair themselves. Ergo, the inflammation occurs. The binders that bind the LDL as part of the inflammatory process are activated. That sets off the process. It's actually a vast shortage of cholesterol and other lipids being delivered to those cells that causes the disease process, if anything. Not the fact that they're unable to get cholesterol from their blood into the cells. It is what it is, not that the cholesterol is high in the blood, is what I'm saying. Prove me wrong. There is no data to prove me wrong. It does not exist, Terry. I'm well versed with what the literature, the scientific experimental literature covers.
I guess I'm missing some part of what you said. I'm trying to collect this bridge. I'm trying. It's hard with the accent and without subtitles.
Right.
But I'm trying. I mean, you haven't learned how to speak proper American yet, but you're working on it. I appreciate that.
Very good.
So let's go back to your claim. You are saying that the reason that Ezetimibe works and the statins work and show a lower incidence.
I didn't say they work. I said there is an associated, very mild, very not very useful association between incidence of secondary cardiac events, not primary ones, secondary ones.
I think the data for primary events is pretty good, but go ahead.
Well, you think wrong. One of us also, Terry, is actually an expert in pure and applied statistical inference as well.
Well, I'm glad you're that, but let's go back.
I do know how to read these inferential statistics on these.
I'm glad you do.
And I can tell you with full confidence that what I'm saying is absolutely correct. There is a mild, hardly useful association between lowered incidence of secondary cardiac events, not primary, in populations who take these classes, those two classes, PCSK9 and statins. However, there is no evidence scientifically available anywhere on this planet that can draw a cause and effect line between the lowering of cholesterol or any of the lipids or any of the lipoproteins in particular and any outcomes. That is a leap of faith. And it's a leap of faith that the pharmacological industry has rammed down the throat of the allopathic community through virtue of basically owning you guys outright. However, the actual science, the experimental science that would be required to establish cause and effect in that instance does not exist still.
And so what do you say heart disease is a manifestation of? Let's use heart disease. That's the easiest one.
Well, again, you're going to have to stipulate what kind of heart disease do you mean, Terry, because there are many different kinds. I thought we were talking about atherosclerotic heart disease.
Right,
is that what we're talking about?
Heart disease. Not valvular. Okay. We won't talk about valvular.
Great. Atherosclerotic disease is a function of several things. It's a function of chronic inflammation of those particular areas of the endothelial lining of the vascular tree on the high pressure side only, not the low pressure side. They are localized and regionalized according to increased transit time of the blood across those regions due to turbulence.
I agree. The high pressure pulsatile flow, high oxygen saturation, shear.
Right.
We absolutely agree on that. What we're talking about is what actually
those are the causal factors. Remove those factors and the disease burden is alleviated.
It's hard to remove them. You remove them, you're going to die. I mean, you need the flow into the arteries.
Nobody's saying remove flow, Terry. That's just ridiculous. What we're saying is remove the essential hypertension, reduce the likelihood, therefore, of the turbulence, which causes the elongated transit time of the blood under pressure past those bifurcations, curvatures, etc., where those lesions do develop, and they won't develop. It's the same thing as saying a fire needs heat, a fuel source, and oxygen. Remove any one of those three and the fire will not progress. It's the same thing with atherosclerosis. What you're basically doing is falsely ascribing a participant in the process as the causal factor to the etiology of the disease process in the first instance. And it's absolutely ridiculous.
So if we take out ApoB and we leave in everything else.
So define what you mean by take out ApoB, Terry. What do you mean take out
Let's say
ApoB? Because you take out ApoB, and what's going to happen is you're going to die.
Let's say we bring down ApoB down into the, we'll use the American designation, down into the 40s.
Yeah.
Are you going to see, with systemic inflammatory disease, are you going to be able to see atherosclerotic heart disease?
A person's presentation individually depends on a number of inputs and outputs. It's a rich tapestry, isn't it?
So I just, okay, but answer the question, right?
What is the question, Terry? I don't understand what the question is.
Apolipoprotein B down into the 40s, are you going to see a person develop atherosclerotic heart disease in those locations? Or
any given person may or may not, Terry.
And at what level are we going to start seeing them? With what level of ApoB are we going to start seeing atherosclerotic heart disease?
I see what you're getting at. This is, again, the allopathic.
We haven't had allopath since 1860, but go ahead.
Okay, you know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about.
I do. I just want to be precise about. I have to defend.
You just want to be pedantic, and fair enough, because I'm being pedantic too. But okay, whatever. What you're also trying to do is throw chocks in when I'm actually trying to communicate something important here.
No, I'm trying to communicate. I'm trying to see where you are getting, because you're saying there's no systemic for this, and then you're presenting.
Okay, so what I'm saying to you is, you're now asking, hang on, Terry, let me answer the question, okay, before we lose this thread. You've asked about a level. At what level can we expect to see something? That is the allopathic habit of, shut up, Terry, for goodness sake. You're being very rude, son.
No.
Very rude indeed. Let me finish my sentence. I've been very patient with you and very polite, above what Ted would be, okay? It's the habit you guys have of wanting to put a threshold value on everything. Any given person may or may not show some atherosclerotic disease burden at any level of ApoB because, Terry, ApoB is not the cause. They are not connected cause and effect. They are associated factors through a number of other covariates, confounds, and collinearities. And it doesn't matter which one of us is the ruder, which one of us is the most belligerent, or which one of us knows the more bigger words. The fact of the matter is, what I am saying to you is a fact. And when I say the evidence to prove me wrong on what I've just said does not exist, that is a fact too, and you can take that to the bank. How's that?
Hey, hang on 1 second, sorry. Hang on, I just have to answer the wife.
Of course you do. We all do, Terry. We all have to answer to the wife, don't we? We all have to answer to the wife. Goodness gracious. I know how that goes.
Yeah, well, there's always a higher being.
Well, yes, and it's not Peter Attia, despite his belief that he is.
Well, he did get some new tattoos, so I mean, we have to give him credit for that.
Well, I don't give Attia credit for anything except being a disgraceful subhuman POS, but that's for another day. Anyways, back to what we're talking about, which is the lack of evidence supporting the lipid hypothesis.
Well,
and the lack of it actually even having anything remotely akin to basic deterministic logic.
And yet we can see with increasing levels of ApoB, increasing atherosclerotic disease.
Right, okay. We also see increasing levels of shark attack coincident, predictably, with the sale of ice creams at Miami Beach, can't we?
Sure.
Right. So are we done with that now?
But when we modulate it, we see the opposite. So we have a mechanism.
No, Terry. That's where the folly is. That's where the fallacy is. No, that is not how you determine mechanism. That is lazy, anti-scientific. That's a schoolboy error. Cause and effect is determined experimentally, which sadly we can't do on human beings because of ethical constraints, financial constraints, practical constraints, all of that. So what you have, that's why it's called the lipid hypothesis, Terry, not the lipid fact, by anyone except charlatans who claim a cause and effect relationship without the evidence to support that claim, because it does not exist still. How's that?
So I'm trying to get at what you think this is about, because what you're saying is ApoB isn't an issue. ApoB is a quiet passenger. It's the ice cream on the hot day in Miami. Is that what you're saying?
So what? No, it isn't. And I'm glad you finished your statement there with a question saying, "Is that what I'm saying?" Because it's not remotely anything close to what I said, Terry.
I misunderstand.
Again, Terry, nothing that comes out of my mouth is by mistake at all. I don't make mistakes. I've been doing this a very, very long time. What I said, Terry, is this: there is no evidence extant anywhere in the literature on this planet which experimentally establishes a cause and effect relationship between any of the lipoproteins or cholesterol itself or any subfraction or any particle count or anything else and the development of atherosclerotic disease burden, cause and effect. It does not exist. There is no evidence for that anywhere. And I said that, Terry, because it is a fact.
So okay. All right. I see you are very strict. You're not going to take the Mendelian randomization where at loss of function.
We can talk about it. We can absolutely talk about it because I think it's very educational for both our audiences. And I think we should talk about the Mendelian. Okay. Let me ask you a few questions about the Mendelian randomization, Terry, just to check your understanding of it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
How many times were the LDL levels in the participants in the Mendelian studies that are published in the literature measured?
I think it was once. Or was it twice?
No, both of those answers are wrong. It was not once at all, on no occasion. What they do is they generally take a known, so they say, a known relationship between the expression of certain SNPs and a given average reduction in the expressed level of LDL in the blood of those people in other populations measured at a different time without reference to the noise around that signal in any way, shape or form, and without reference whatsoever to the well-known effect that genes are not a fait accompli. They do not determine the level of anything. They are an on and or off thing. Genes can be up or down regulated. It's more a slider, more a fader than a switch, to be fair. Example, another incompetent buffoon who should remain silent, frankly, name of Nick Norwitz, MD, PhD from Harvard. He changed his reading in his blood by over 100 points in 24 hours by eating Oreos cookies solely. Okay? So don't tell me genes determine the LDL level. They don't. And when you're talking about a Mendelian, hang on, Terry, I'm not finished.
Oh, I'm sorry.
When you're talking about a Mendelian study as if that's some kind of evidence of something, wherein that Mendelian study claims in its title and in its blurb to be able to impart information to us on cause and effect without saying, actually, we can't because we didn't measure people's LDL levels, not even once.
Correct. I agree.
Are we done with Mendelian now?
No. You weren't finished. I'm sorry. I was just I didn't mean to interrupt. I was just
what I'm asking you now, Terry, is now I'm done with Mendelian. I'm finished. That's not science or anything remotely akin to science. It's rubbish, Terry. It's nonsense.
Why do you say it's rubbish?
How can you tell me? I've just explained it to you, Terry. What part of that didn't you understand?
Because what you said is it didn't measure level, which is true. However, genetic variants that determine the lifelong ApoB or LDL exposure are fixed. And that's why MR shows stronger.
That's ridiculous, Terry. My cholesterol level, your cholesterol level, my ApoB, your ApoB, my LDL, your LDL, number one, is individual, not an average value. And there's a noise around an average signal. How much was that? Shall we get to that? Number two, it's not determined by the genes. The genes have an impact on that. I've just explained to you how it is that we can uncouple what someone's genes are and what actual level of something they express is. You're talking about something that is fixed that isn't fixed. It's ridiculous. It's beyond laughable.
Well, LDL is clearly influenced by environment, but it's absolutely determined in a large part by genes. Diet will move LDL a little bit. Genes set the baseline in the lifetime exposure. Are you disagreeing with that?
Lifetime exposure, Terry, is an area under a curve, and it requires repeated measurements that are granular enough that we don't miss large diversions. For example, 100 points in 24 hours by eating Oreo cookies. If we measure someone's LDL level once, or indeed not even once, are we in any position to comment on what their LDL is, let alone how that might affect their health outcomes long-term over multiple decades, Terry?
Well, we certainly have that in familial hypercholesterolemia, don't we? You have the LDLR mutations, where the C is often between, 190, 400 plus points from childhood, right? It occurs before a lifestyle.
But not universally, typically, yes.
I think you were interrupting me, and I can't.
Sorry, I do apologize. Carry on.
I want to hear what you have to say, so I just want to, and I know you're anxious to get it out. And then when we look at the PCSK9 loss of function variants, we see these exceedingly low LDLs over lifetime risks. So those are both examples, if you will, of genes with LDL over lifetime risks. We can look at ApoB mutations when we look at those.
Okay, I am going to have to stop you because now you're using the word risk, which is another word which is totally inappropriate in this field. Risk is akin to cause and effect.
What we're looking at is lifetime effects that are
okay, Terry, once again, let me be very clear here once again. If you want to talk about lifetime exposure to LDL in the blood, you need to show me an area under the curve of multiple measurements on a given individual over their lifetime of their LDL. Otherwise, we're done because you don't have that data otherwise.
Well, when you
cannot comment upon it.
When you have familial hypercholesterolemia, we have plenty of examples of lifetime looking at those individuals with their LDL over the lifetime and the events that occur, don't we?
Okay, and in that case, when you have the what you still don't have in those cases, Terry, is a cause and effect relationship. Because once again, shark attacks and ice cream, fire crews and forest fires.
Familial hypercholesterolemia, increase in events. Yes, you can say that's an association, pretty strong.
I just did,
and then you have PCSK9 loss of function variants, no special diet, no supplements, no lifestyle hacks. That gene lowers the lifetime limit of LDL, lower things. So we have two sides on two genetics, right? Where you can
there are multiple SNPs. There are multiple SNPs that have been looked at.
These are two things which have absolutely been measured in these people over time. We know the genetics of those people. That's not mysterious. So you can say in these genes with the people that have familial hypercholesterolemia, of which I am one, you are going to see if untreated, you will see a lifetime rise in familial hypercholesterolemia along with etc. In these other people.
No. You just made a statement about yourself individually. You've just said a person, myself included, is what you just said, who has this gene set will have familial hypercholesterolemia, which is not true. You will not necessarily.
Really?
Typically they do. I'll give you that. Typically they do. I'll give you that. But it's not a fait accompli. You can manage your cholesterol with all sorts of things, pharmacologically included. And
tell me what tons of things are going to manage our cholesterol with.
Or you could let me finish my sentence. That'll be good too.
We're very bad at this with each other, aren't we?
We are, because it's something it's a view that's passionately held by both sides of this theological divide. Sadly,
I don't think we're going to get far with this, but I do enjoy talking to you.
Well, when you say get far, where is it you'd like to get to? Because where I'm getting to is what I'm getting. Hang on, Terry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
What I am getting to is this: you are part of a theologically based fraternity, for want of a better word, of individuals who apparently believe that lipids play a causal role in atherosclerotic disease burden. And I am here to tell you, as a scientist who has studied this field specifically for over 2 decades, that there is no scientific evidence to support your theology. As such, your theology is a theology.
And I would say
that is what I am objecting to when I see people like you come online and make definitive, authoritative cause and effect statements that are not scientifically backed up.
I would disagree.
I know you would, but you'd be wrong, Terry, because what I just said is unassailable.
Well, it is assailable because, again, I looked at the genetics and you said, well, that's ice cream and shark attacks, right?
I think where we're missing each other here, Terry, is your apparent lack of comprehension of what is the important word here. What is the determinant here? What is the thing that's causing the problem? The problem is your use, and all your co-conspirators, I'll call them that for want of a better term, your use of the terminology cause and effect. Ergo risk or hazard, because they're both cause and effect claims as well. You do not have the evidence to support that. You say the science shows. It doesn't, Terry, still.
Well, here's what the science shows. Inherited loss of LDL receptor function causes a lifelong ApoB product.
There you go. No, Terry. No, you just used the cause word again. I will not have it. No.
So you don't
no gene causes any hard health outcome of any kind. No.
Really? Even though
Yes,
we have
really.
all of the data of people with the LDL loss of function, all of these people with this, they don't have the they develop the premature atherosclerotic disease or the PCSK9.
We've covered that, Terry, already. We've covered that. I've given you a perfectly viable hypothesis as to the etiology of that early disease burden in those populations.
You gave a hypothesis.
And I've asked you to prove me wrong.
You
haven't done, so my hypothesis stands.
Well,
it stands on equal footing to your hypothesis, which is also not supported.
All right, so give me your hypothesis, because I don't think you ever articulated it, because you kept.
I did. You just clearly missed it. I said the problem with those people's endothelial cell linings, Terry, is likely, in my view, to be their inability to absorb and use the desperately needed cholesterol and other lipids that they can't because they don't have the receptor. That is causing the damage to those cells.
And what is your evidence?
Not the fact that they have, not that they have elevated blood cholesterol.
And your evidence for that is?
Just exactly the same amount of evidence that you've got for your hypothesis.
So
which is none.
I would disagree that it's none. I think we're like Catholics and Protestants discussing theology here.
Well, again, one of those is right and one of those is wrong, Terry. There is a right and wrong in this universe.
There isn't always a right and wrong, not with religion. I'm an atheist, but that's okay.
I'm actually agnostic myself too, but there you go.
I think we do better talking about Peter Attia.
We do, because we agree on Peter Attia.
Well, then again.
Yeah, he's an incompetent, he's a nasty piece of work, and he ought to remain silent for the rest of his life.
He should. He has enough money to remain silent, and he should go away. And I can't believe that he hasn't resigned from CBS studios in the United States, because if I were him and had something nasty that came out of my headlines and had plenty of money to go away, that's what I would do. But he doesn't have that.
Yeah, but none of that changes the facts, Terry, and the facts remain unchanged by anything I say or you say. The facts are as I've given them. And they are this. Let me again repeat them, and I'm going to ask you to assail them again, because you still haven't. There is no evidence extant anywhere in the peer-reviewed literature on this planet or elsewhere that we're aware of linking cause and effect experimentally, lipids, any of the lipoproteins or any subfraction of any of those things, or cholesterol itself, let alone saturated fat, with the development of atherosclerotic disease burden in human beings. It does not exist, does it?
No, I would disagree.
Why would you disagree, Terry? On what basis would you disagree? What I just said is a fact. In the same way, Terry, that when I say the sun will rise tomorrow morning, you can put that in the bank. It's a fact.
Well, we hope it.
What is your problem with factuality? I've just given you a fact. There is no evidence establishing cause and effect in this field.
When we do an LDL receptor knockout in mice, right? ApoB particles accumulate, spontaneous atherosclerosis.
Oh my God. Are we serious?
Right? Impaired clearance, increased ApoB.
Now we're talking around in circles, Terry, aren't we?
We seem to be.
Because no
you're
amount
not-
of talking about no amount of talking about genes, associations of genes with an average level of expression of anything in anybody can inform us in any way, shape, or form on cause nor effect of any disease process, can it?
Really? Because what
Yes,
about
really, Terry. That's why I just
What
said it.
about-
I said it because it's correct. Of course it's really.
What about carnitine palmitoyltransferase? What about all of those genes we have metabolic disorders for, which shows when we knock them out, we have diseases? Is that just cause and effect or not cause and effect, or is that just nonsense?
Why? Well, it's nonsense because it's a non-applicable argument to what we are talking about here.
No. I mean, I think the basic argument is, I'm saying you have genes which have an overall lifetime effect, cumulative effect, and you have a disease process. And you are simply denying it and saying,
okay, right, Terry. Let's go there then. If you want to go there, let's go there. Okay, great. Tell me about the signal to noise ratio on the actual expressions as measured in human beings of their expressed LDL levels as that relates to any gene SNP of any kind over time, and point me to a decent and granular measurement of that over time. It does not exist, Terry. I'll save you the time and I'll save you the breath.
So
It's
what you're
still a
saying
theology.
is all of the data that we have of people with familial hypercholesterolemia, where we have
What data, Terry? What data do you have on those people?
Look at all the patients who we have accumulated with lipid
Okay, all the patients. Which ones, Terry? Which patients are you talking about?
The ones that have familial hypercholesterolemia, their lifetime burden.
According to whom, on the basis of what?
Well, their lifetime burden of LDL is very high. Wouldn't you agree?
I would not necessarily know.
Why is that?
Again, Terry, it's because you need to, well, if you want the answer to the question, let me answer it.
All right.
You need to understand the difference between a mean value in a population and an individual response. Noise to signal ratio. You also need to understand the difference between a physiological parameter which is stable, which is what you're inferring LDL is, and one which is highly labile, which is what LDL actually is. And I've given you clear examples, including one not really worth listening to, Nick Norwitz, on how he can change his level by 100 points in 24 hours by changing his diet. And you're still banging on about genes.
Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah.
At what point are you going to join the party with us, Terry? The party over here where we actually understand basic logic, basic science, and basic rules of inference, basic epistemology. 101.
Well, I prefer sort of looking at things like logic. We'll set that aside. Or we don't have to.
Good. There we go. That's the end of the debate then, isn't it?
No.
We'll set the logic aside. We'll set actual science, actual epistemology aside. We'll set actual logic aside. And what you're about to tell me, Terry, is you just desperately want to believe this hypothesis because that's what you're trained to believe. And actually, because your income depends upon supporting this hypothesis to some degree. Because you're not allowed, are you, as a physician, to say this is nonsense?
No one's not allowing me to do anything. What are you talking about?
I'm talking about physicians not being allowed at large to actually have an opinion on this.
Not allowing us.
Well, the medical board. If you publicly came out and said there's no evidence whatsoever supporting the lipid hypothesis, statins are contraindicated metabolic poisons, in fact, and there's no evidence to support any claim otherwise, what would happen to your medical registration?
Nothing.
Rubbish. Try it then.
We have
okay, I challenge you, Terry. I challenge you to do exactly that and see what happens to your registration.
I would say something that I don't believe is true, but we have people who say that all the time in the United States. Medical boards aren't going after them for that. Look at Jack Wilson in Phoenix, who says, buy my supplements and don't take statins, and my supplements will save you heart disease, and lipid hypothesis is nonsense.
Okay, anyway, this is really an irrelevant segue. Okay, you say that you're free to say whatever you like. Okay, fine. I'll give you that, Terry. I'll let you have that. You're free to say whatever you want.
I'm saying I'm allowed to say that, yes.
Okay, you're correcting me on that. You're saying you can say whatever you like. Okay, great. That being the case, that actually makes your position even more ridiculous, because I've shown clearly in this discussion that your position lacks
No, what
vastly.
you've done is you've questioned the evidence, and you say that the evidence.
I haven't questioned it. I haven't questioned it, Terry. I've told you it does not exist, unequivocally, absolutely does not exist to support your hypothesis.
Proteins. So you are saying that ApoB lipid-containing proteins are not necessary or not sufficient to cause atherosclerosis. Is that what you're saying?
Case by case, one of those is correct in any given individual.
So that if we introduce ApoB and plaque doesn't form, can you show me a case where that happens?
Can you show me a case where it does?
Yeah, when we introduce ApoB, when we increase
cause and
ApoB,
effect, Terry, is because you're talking about cause and effect here. Show me the cause and effect.
And when you remove ApoB and plaque doesn't form, you're going to say, well, that's a cause.
It does form, though, Terry. It does form.
Really?
When because again, you're talking about removing ApoB. That's not possible, Terry. If you remove ApoB, the person will die rapidly. So what nonsense is this that you're talking about, removing the ApoB? You're talking about pharmacologically reducing the expression of ApoB, which is a quite different thing. And the drugs that are typically used to achieve this lofty goal are serendipitously anti-inflammatory. That is a confound that destroys any ability for you to make a cause and effect claim on this association. Right there.
I agree.
We're done with that.
I agree the statins are anti-inflammatory. Is ezetimibe anti-inflammatory?
I'm not an expert on that particular drug. I haven't done any clinical work in those kind of drugs in about 10 years.
Ezetimibe reduces LDL by inhibiting absorption, reduces it about 30 or 40%. So
by what mechanism does it reduce absorption?
Ezetimibe? It binds the product.
Sorry, you broke up there, Terry. Try that again.
It binds the product.
No, you've gone silent. Can't hear a word, sorry. It's nothing I'm doing, by the way, kiddies. I'm asking Terry to tell me the pharmacology of this drug, and I can't hear him at all. Not a word.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hello?
Gotcha. Yep.
Oh, I lost you for a second. You froze. Or I froze. Okay. It could have been my internet. I don't know.
Anyway, right. So ezetimibe binds something, he said.
So it
inhibits absorption. I guess you mean
it reduces
dietary
cholesterol, dietary cholesterol, and biliary cholesterol, not triglycerides. And it does a mild upregulating of LDL receptors. So it reduces LDL-C by about 18 to 25%. And so I, for example, use that along. So what I'm saying is, what I ask you is, and you don't know, and that's, but it's like, this certainly has a positive effect. So what is its effect then? If ezetimibe...
Okay, so when you say a positive effect, what do you mean by the positive effect? Because effect is a conjugate of cause, isn't it, Terry? So I'm going to ask you for some cause and effect evidence that drug causes anything in terms of hard health outcomes of any kind.
No, what I'm saying is...
Sure, absolutely. It might change the expression or level of cholesterol or LDL or any of the lipoproteins or any subfraction in some way. How does that relate to hard health outcomes, cause and effect? Because that's the data that does not exist still.
Well, your claim was, and this is what I'm asking you, and apparently you don't know, and that's fine. What I was saying is, how does this drug decrease LDL-C, right? And
if it reduces the level of cholesterol in the blood, it would reduce the need for the genes to produce the LDL carrier. So that would make sense. But what's your point? Because that's got nothing to do with hard health outcomes necessarily.
No, I mean, the studies show that there's fewer myocardial infarctions, stroke, and revascularizations on this
How many
drug.
fewer?
I'm asking you.
How many fewer?
I'm sorry?
How many fewer? You said fewer. How many fewer?
You know what? I need to look that up right now. I don't know.
Right. So that would seem to be spouting a trope then, wouldn't it?
No, I mean, that's, I can't.
Because I am quite expert in reading these inferential statistics, and I can tell you that excuse me, Cherry, they all suffer these kind of statistical outputs you're talking about here at the moment, fewer heart attacks. All of these studies suffer from huge, vast, enormous noise to signal ratio issues and vastly lacking power. They have huge sample sizes, absolutely. The reason they have huge sample sizes is so they can find anything even remotely statistically significant. But that has nothing to do with clinical significance whatsoever. Clinical significance is a whole different lecture series.
I think we deal in terms of clinical significance. We deal in terms of patients that get better. We deal in terms of patients that have less cardiovascular risk, and we look at that. And yes, you have to do.
So if that's what you deal in, Terry, how is it that you can't even give me the statistic off the top of your head that you're talking about? You said less heart attacks.
But I can look it up, and so can you.
You could look it up, but why don't you do that? And then we can look at the noise around that and see why that's not useful or meaningful, or where the covariates, confounds, and collinearities are that completely destroy that inference as being of any use whatsoever, cause and effect, or even as a predictor in most cases. We could go there if you like. Or we could do that in a separate debate where you can prepare for it if you like. Nonetheless, I will absolutely wreck you on statistics any day of the week and twice on Sundays.
That's fine.
It's an area of expertise, Terry. I do know what I'm talking about here.
So, all right. So I'm asking you, all right. So you're going to say, you say that statins, this was the formation of my question, was you said statins are mildly inflammatory, and that's the reason for the lowering reduction. That's the reason I'm the first person in my family not to have a heart attack in my 50s. That's the reason other people who take statins have a decreased risk, however small that might be.
No, I offered that as an alternate hypothesis.
And your comment was you believe this to be the anti-inflammatory effect of the statin on the blood vessel, which it clearly has.
I said that is a perfectly viable alternate hypothesis. That's all I need to do.
Right. And so
what you have claimed is a cause and effect relationship without the evidence to support that. All I need to do to undercut your position and end this debate as a debate is to say to you, here is an alternate hypothesis. Prove it wrong. You've been unable to do so. In fact, you've agreed with me. Yes. Inflammation plays a role in atherosclerotic disease burden. We're done.
Absolutely plays a role. Absolutely. I'm not
right, so we're done. We're done here then, aren't we, in terms of this as a debate?
Okay, we can be done.
So what you now need to do, Terry, is learn from this, apologize to your audience and mine publicly, and stop making cause and effect claims about LDL or cholesterol or ApoB or any of these things, LP little a or whatever the hell you like. It makes no difference. None of these things are proven causal in heart disease of any kind. So you've been wrong.
I didn't say
you've said the wrong thing, and you owe the public an apology, don't you?
You're making quite a leap there.
I'm not making a leap. What I'm doing is saying you owe the public an apology for your false statement about cause and effect. Your repeated false statements about cause and effect, because you do not have the evidence to support that claim. Still. So your two options here, Terry, are to proffer the apology that is needed to the public, publicly, here, right now, or prove me wrong. Prove there is no alternate hypothesis and that what you've been saying so far about cause and effect is correct, in which case you will need to prove cause and effect by the accepted standards of scientific epistemology, which you can't do because it doesn't exist. You're on a hiding tonight. You could not possibly prevail in this debate-style discussion, Terry, before you got here. There was no way for you to prevail.
No way. Well, I kind of figured that.
So now what I'm inviting you to do is to proffer the apology that you owe the public, because you have publicly stated on many occasions that LDL or cholesterol or LP little a or ApoB 100 or some subfraction of particle size or whatever is a causal factor or a risk factor or a hazard in heart disease. None of those things are established facts. You owe us an apology.
We're not affected by your standards.
No, not my standards. The standards, Terry, of science, the epistemology of science. So the epistemology of science was put together 2,500 years before I was born. So don't give me that. My standards.
No, this is clearly your standards.
It's not my standards. It's the standards of science.
I mean, you proffered the idea of if you light the fuse, inflammation, you will get the explosion. I proffered the effect of, if you don't have the LDL there, you will not have the atherosclerotic buildup.
You'll also be dead.
What's that?
You don't have the LDL there, you also will be dead. You cannot live without LDL.
So we can have exceedingly low levels of LDL. Do you agree?
There is such a thing as too low LDL, yes, absolutely.
What is too low LDL?
Well, again, there is no cause and effect evidence to go to here. I can make an inference. Excuse me, Terry, excuse me. We can make an inference based on observations, in which case I would probably tend to go with the largest data set available on this topic. And it's actually not even peer-reviewed published data. It's just two very large data sets collected by two organizations. They happen to be the World Health Organization, which has no credibility, and the I think it was the British Heart Foundation, who also have no credibility. But nonetheless, let's take their data set as being accurate, because it's an incidence data set. And we look at 168, I think it is, countries and territories around the world, several billion person years of follow-up. And what we find is that the lowest incidence of not only heart disease, but also cancers and all sorts of other morbidities and other reasons of mortality, all causes of mortality, basically, they have a nadir point. There is an ideal level in terms of incidence of death. And that's at the 220 milligrams per deciliter of total cholesterol level, which would indicate, in most people, an LDL level that's probably 130 to 150. So anything below that, and what they find is a precipitous increase in the rate of death per person year of follow-up. Precipitous, Terry.
Ice cream and shark bites.
Absolutely. And I did disclaim that before I said it. I said, well, that's all we've got.
And so what I initially asked you is, what's the low level on the LDL side? You said it was very bad. And I said, so what's that level? What's that level at which...
Well, hang on.
If there's an LDL...
What do you mean? Hang on, Terry, we need to clarify here, because now you're saying words that actually are not anything like...
Right.
Excuse me. They are nothing like words I actually said. So if you want to say I said such and such, let's get it right. What do you claim I said?
What I'm trying to get from you, let me put it this way, is the lowest level of LDL. Now, you've just said it's...
What do you mean the lowest level of LDL? What do you mean the lowest level? The lowest level possible of LDL is 0, in which case that person will be dead already.
Right. And so what is the lowest level where it's acceptable? Where are you going to find optimal health? Where are you going to find...
Again, let me answer the question again then, Terry, because I already did, so let me do it again.
You said there.
Okay, well, there you go. There's no definite answer to that question. However, the inference that I've given you...
set of levels right there between 130 and 150. Is that right?
No, that's not right. There are no levels that are acceptable or otherwise to me. I don't have the data to make a statement about what is acceptable still, and I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do is say, here is the influence that does exist that says, well, here's what we observe. However, still, we are in the reads here on associative data. We are still not dealing with cause nor effect. We are still not establishing cause nor effect, and you still owe the public an apology for making a cause and effect statement that you cannot support. Still.
No, I can't.
You do, Terry. You do. You owe us an apology, all of us.
I formally disagree.
Everyone you have ever spoken to, or everyone who has ever watched any of your videos where you claim a cause and effect relationship is established, you owe all of those people an apology, because it is not established and it does not exist, the evidence that would be required to do that. Not my standards, the standards of science still.
Tell me what your standards would be that would affect that. Give me what would be the standard. Say, yes, this is cause and effect.
Right.
Please.
Cause and effect is established by experimental intervention under proper observation, proper control, proper power, proper tenure, both internally and externally valid methodologies, all of which are impossible in human beings, will never be done.
So it will never happen. You will never be able to make this case.
We will never be able to state cause and effect has been established. What we will be able to say is, on any given day, any given individual can have an opinion around their reading of the level of veracity of any given inference, any given hypothesis. I've got no problem with that. If somebody says, I believe X, Y, or Z, that's fine. That's your opinion. Opinions, Terry, are just like anal orifices, though, aren't they? Almost everybody's got one, and it's almost certainly full of excrement. If you want facts, though, cause and effect is established. If you want to state that, you need to meet the epistemological standard for that. And you can't, because it doesn't exist. You have made a mistake. You have overstepped the bounds of certainty that have been established in society. You are relying on a hypothetical situation. You are relying on a consensus belief structure. And you are overly arrogant, and you are suffering from Dunning-Kruger. You owe us an apology. I have made that quite clear in this discussion. When are we going to get the apology, Terry?
You're not going to, because there's no apology owed.
There is.
I have a different belief in cause and effect than you do. I think that we can actually...
Your belief in cause and effect has no effect whatsoever on what is required to establish it. It is still an epistemology which has still been in place scientifically for 2,500 years or more. And if you want to abandon that, then, if you don't want to apologize, you need to publicly state clearly that you are not informed by science, that you are a theologian and not, therefore, someone who should be taken remotely seriously as a clinician. How's that? That's your other option.
I disagree. Those are not the options.
They are the options, Terry, quite clearly.
They're not the options. I think what you're saying is you have boxed into saying this is what is going to be, and it's going to be this. And we can't establish cause and effect for anything in humans because of this. Therefore, all of these diseases don't have cause and effect. We can throw out the germ theory. We can throw out TB as a mycoplasmos as a cause of tuberculosis. We can throw
now you're straw manning. Now you're straw manning, putting words in my mouth and saying things I haven't said.
I'm saying the logical conclusion of what you're saying. This is cause. This is effect.
What I'm saying, Terry, again, to be very clear, what I'm saying is I have no problem with somebody saying, I personally believe that there is a connection between cholesterol and heart disease. I don't care if you believe that. That's fine. If you, however, use the word cause or effect, risk or hazard, now you're in the wrong, unequivocally.
Why is risk in the wrong?
Because risk implies mechanism. What's the mechanism, Terry?
Mechanism is, as previously described. That's the mechanism.
It's not the mechanism, though, is it? Because you didn't give us a mechanism of cause and effect for heart disease. You gave us an associate to heart disease.
Right. And you're saying, and I'm going to say, you have increased risk with increased cholesterol.
Well, you don't, though.
Really?
Really?
Familial
yes,
hypercholesterolemia would disagree. Patients who have PCSK9 inhibitors or have PKS9 loss of function.
I don't care whether they'd agree or not. It doesn't affect the facts. You still cannot change facts with your opinion. And you are still talking about associative data, and associative data still cannot inform us on cause nor effect. Still.
And we're talking about risk, not cause or effect. And I'm looking at risk.
Cause and effect and risk are synonymous. If you say risk or hazard, okay, this is ridiculous. Risk and hazard are both cause and effect statements necessarily. They have to be. Clearly, one of us hasn't learned how to speak English properly or understand words properly. It's not me, Terry. It's you again.
And hazard is hazard is an instantaneous event rate at a moment in time. But
according to whom, on the basis of what? Who defined that such? Where did that definition come from, Terry?
Well, let's look at smoking, right? Smoking and lung cancer.
Oh, we've heard this song before as well. This will be funny.
No,
my audience, Terry, all of my audience have also heard this argument before as well.
I'm glad I haven't, because I'm not in your audience. So please enlighten me here.
Okay.
Smoking and lung cancer, is that a cause and effect?
Okay, the relationship between smoking and the incidence of lung cancer, as I understand it from the literature I have read on this topic, is that there is an increase in incidence of lung cancer in smoking populations, which is equitable to about 18,500% per pack year of smoking. That's what the literature tells us.
So
that's pretty significant, isn't it? That's a pretty significant association between factors, isn't it?
So so what I'm saying is, a risk increase does not equal causation. And there is definitely a risk increase. So is there?
No, I didn't use the word risk, Terry. You did. I used the word incidence. Incidence isn't risk, is it? Incidence either occurs or doesn't occur. A person either, excuse me, Terry, excuse me. A person either gets lung cancer in any given period of time or they don't.
Correct. That's a
you don't get a bit of lung cancer. You either have a diagnosis of a lung cancer or you don't.
Correct.
That's an incidence. There's no risk involved. The odds are 0, I don't have it, or 1, I do.
Right. And so
risk is not at play here.
Right.
At all. The incidence, Terry, is 18,500% per pack year of smoking. That's quite significant, isn't it?
So my question was back to you said, and maybe I misinterpreted what you said or misheard what you said, because we do have a tendency to talk over one another, and you don't speak American very well. But risk, you said, was the same as cause, and I disagree.
No, I didn't. I said they're synonymous factors in the context you're using them.
No. So I will say that there is an increased risk with increased ApoB. You will disagree with that.
I will, because that's not establishable by any literature existing anywhere on this planet.
And I will disagree, and we will disagree over what the literature is.
Well, one of us, Terry, has published a very large number of peer-reviewed publications. One of us is an expert in this field. One of us, Terry, understands statistical inference, pure and applied statistics very well.
Okay.
One of us has been at the coalface of the epistemology of statistical, pure and applied statistics itself, let alone cardiovascular pathophysiology, and a few other fields throughout my time as well, just for fun, really. I'm not here to get your permission to tell you that the use of the word risk universally, it's not just you, it's used ubiquitously out there in the pseudosciences, it is not appropriate. Because these studies that you're talking about look at and report on incidence. And they have two subpopulations, which are usually not properly equated, not properly randomized, not controlled at all. They're naturalistic observations that can't tell us anything about cause and effect anyway. But nonetheless, we have two populations with two different levels of incidence. That's not risk. That is incidence. They are not the same thing. A spade is a spade.
Did you think so? You don't think incidence determines risk?
No, incidence is something that has occurred in any given period of time or has not. Risk has nothing to do with it still.
So
the odds are, listen, if I go to the doctor next week and I say, can you test me for lung cancer? And the doctor says, you don't have it, or you do, there's no risk. There's no odds. There's no ratio. It's either happened or it hasn't happened. I either get that diagnosis or I get cleared of that diagnosis at that time.
But we were
risk has nothing to do with it.
Right. So what you're saying is incidence and risk do not describe disease occurrence. Is that what you're saying?
I didn't say anything remotely similar to that, Terry, still.
I'm just trying to nail it down. That's all I'm trying to do.
Well, what you're trying to do is mold what I have said, which is unassailable and correct, into something else.
I'm trying to figure this out. So
I don't think you are trying to figure it out, though, Terry, because you would have to be immensely obtuse. You would have to be you'd have to be a lot lower in IQ than I actually think you are to fail to understand the difference between incidence and risk. Incidence, Terry, is a post hoc retrospective thing. Either something occurred or it didn't.
Understand.
Right.
I got that.
Risk is a prospective statement on the likelihood of something occurring in the future.
Correct.
Right. There is no evidence anywhere on this planet that can tell me, you, Auntie Floss, or all of us collectively what our risk of any outcome is in terms of hard health outcomes whatsoever, as that relates to either the intake of cholesterol or the expression of cholesterol in our blood whatsoever.
So you say that all of these studies,
Which studies? You can say all of these studies. Which studies, mate?
No. Let's be a little generic. I want to get your opinion down here so that I understand it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you would say that the studies that show the change in relative or absolute risk of heart
No,
disease?
there are no studies that show anything about risk still. We've just covered this, Terry, not 2 minutes ago.
You would say that the studies, let's say the PISA and the Jupiter study, for example, which you're very familiar with, I'm sure, do not give a relationship between the reduction of atherogenic changes and heart disease. Is that what you're saying?
You're very flowery there in what you've just asked me.
I'm not trying to be. I'm not trying to be. I'm really trying to.
Okay. Let me be clear once again. Without naming any particular study, it doesn't matter what particular study you're talking about or what particular studies you're talking about. I'm only saying what studies, Terry, because you say the studies show, and that's my typical challenge to people. What studies?
Right. So
there are no studies, Terry, still, listen to me carefully.
I'm listening.
There are no studies in existence that can inform you, me, Auntie Floss, anybody else, or all of us collectively on our risk prospectively going forward of any hard health outcome as that relates to any aspect of anything, actually. There are studies that report retrospectively on outcomes in certain subpopulations under the conditions that those people lived at that time, which does not inform anybody going forward on their risk of anything. It informs on what did occur in those people back then with 100% certainty, or at least those studies would report on that if that's what they actually reported, the actual incidences recorded, because they don't even do that, do they, Terry? So they adjust. So in other words, they fabricate data. They lie about what they even saw.
So you think Framingham fabricated their data?
They did, absolutely, because they adjusted it. That's one of the forms of fabrication. If you adjust an observation, you're not a scientist. Scientists report what they observed, not what they think they might have observed had they bothered to apply some discipline and control things that they actually didn't or couldn't, because we're talking about human subjects.
Well, at some time
those studies, Terry, are not science. They are not remotely akin to science. They have no value whatever prognostically. None.
Sorry, hang on. I have to. This is one of the things about being a. Sorry, I apologize.
It's fine.
All right. I always hate it when someone calls on the wrong line and bring me spam. I apologize.
That's fine.
There are some things I have to answer because I have to.
Of course you do.
I would love to at some time. I can't do it now because I do have to make dinner, and that's something that is my duty. Okay. I would love to at some time seriously talk to you about a couple of studies and get your expertise as your statistical side about both Framingham and the Nurses' Health Study.
Yep.
And I will, I have your email. So I'm going to ask you to do this if you don't mind engaging in that.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Love to.
I'm very serious about this. I'm not trying to be dogmatic. I'm not trying, I really want to find out your position, and I really want to pick your brain about that, if that's okay.
It absolutely is okay. What we would like, those of us in this fraternity, those of us who understand science and epistemology, because I've trained my people very well, we would still like to hear your apology for falsely claiming cause and effect when you cannot support that with experimental data, which is what is required to talk about cause and effect. Well, and we would also like your undertaking going forward to cease making that claim publicly to people, the unwashed masses, who don't have the training that my audience have and who don't understand that actually just because you've got MD after your name doesn't mean you know anything about this. That's what we'd like to hear.
Is it?
It is. But I'm quite happy to engage in a discussion with you about the flaws, foibles, frailties, and non-applicability of prospective cohort studies, specifically anyone you like, or indeed at large, in terms of what they get wrong.
Are you there?
Yeah. Yep. I just said I'm happy to engage in that.
I missed it. I apologize.
That's fine. Yep. What I said was I'm quite happy to engage in a discussion with you about any given prospective cohort study you like, or any set of studies you like, or indeed at large generally, to talk about the flaws, foibles, fallacies, non-applicability, and lack of prognostic value of those studies in human health outcomes. Anytime you like, and twice on Sundays.
I would love to do that, because I want to make sure that I've got this correct, and I think that I would love to hear your views on those.
That'd be great. Send me an email.
I will, or we'll engage on X.
All right. I'm sure somebody. A lot of people think that small stuffed yellow teddy bear is actually me. It's quite clear that, look, we respect his identity.
Yes, respect my identity, bigots.
Well, you go and twiddle the knobs, Ted, like you're supposed to. He's not me. I'm not him. But I'm sure he'll be happy to give you your pedigree repeatedly until such time as you, I guess, publicly front up to the fact that you've been spanked on cause and effect, as you were going to be, because it doesn't exist still, the evidence for it, and that you have fallaciously been claiming a cause and effect relationship where one isn't established, for which you owe the public an apology still. And I will continue to ask you for that apology until we get it.
Okay, well, we're going to keep working on these papers so that you can bring me there if you can. Is that a deal?
Yeah. Well, I think we've already got you there on cause and effect.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, anything else?
I can't think of anything, but we do have to put in another good word for Peter Attia, because not enough can be said about him.
No, he's a great gentleman. He's awesome in his mind. He's a legend in his own lunchtime, and he knows everything about exercise physiology, cardiovascular pathophysiology, and how to be a disgraceful piece of shit.
It's and they also got Deepak Chopra in there. Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Totally off subject, not in your field. You're going to be very uncomfortable with this. Are you ready?
Oh, go on. I love it. Yeah.
I want you to imagine this.
Yep.
Drops out of a surgical residency program.
Yep.
Okay? Don't know why. Well, he was kicked out, whatever.
Yeah.
Flounders around. All of a sudden, somehow comes in the company of Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah.
Okay. While he's doing his work with Newsy with Gary Tobbs.
Yep.
Trying to get money. Says, go take this thing. Next thing we know, he has a concierge medical practice where he charges $150,000 a year for the exercise physiology, the rucksack.
Yep.
After meeting Epstein and his friends, I don't understand the cause. You know cause and effect. Can you help me with that? How does that magically happen?
Well, I mean, Peter Attia has achieved what he has achieved in terms of public notoriety and such. I think, this is an opinion, it's not a cause and effect thing, it has to be an opinion because I don't know, but I think it's a combination of a bloke who's actually a charlatan who is convincing enough to convince low IQ people that he knows what he's talking about, while ever having a degree of charisma of some kind. I was reviled by him immediately the first time I saw a video of his. But mostly I'm reviled by fallacious information or disinformation out there because it's everywhere. So, I mean, if I met Peter Attia and knew nothing about him and just sat down and spoke to him off camera and he wasn't being a dick like he normally is, I don't know, you might get along with him. I don't know. Any given person might. And then if he says, well, I'm a doctor, which he really isn't, he's qualified as such, doesn't make him one. And he says, I'm an expert in longevity, which you don't bother to check because, why would you say he's an expert in longevity if he's not? And if I had too much money, which sadly I don't know. That could be it. It certainly isn't anything logical.
Let me give you a hypothesis about cons.
Okay.
Because I study con men.
Yep.
Do you know who the easiest people to con are? They're not stupid people. I think you have that. I think many people think that. The easiest people to con are intelligent people.
Okay.
because, you've been working with that with me, but let's think about it this way. People who are unintelligent or can understand, be happy not knowing something. People who are intelligent want to make the circle happen so that they can make a logical system of it.
Yep.
You can con them, and then they will fiercely defend that logical circle they have made. So I think Peter Attia doesn't con dumb people. I think he cons very smart, intelligent, non-medically sophisticated people who have way too much money.
Okay.
And that's sort of my thing about cons, is it's easier to con bright people than it is to con stupid people. It's easier to con, I would absolutely agree, statistics was something that I took in graduate school, but afterwards it's not, it's certainly not my strong point. So I would defer to you on that.
Right. Okay.
But if you wanted to con me about something statistically, you would very easily be able to. And I would say, well, he said this, and therefore blah, blah, blah. And if you gave me that perfect logical circle, you could bring me into a statistical con, right?
Right.
And I would defend that.
With that in mind,
don't go back there.
Is there any plausible possibility that you have been conned already, son?
I may have been. I have been conned many times.
Right.
I mean, I am fully happy to admit that. I have been conned many times.
Okay, I think that's as close as we're going to get to an apology for your false statement about cause and effect. But let's deal with it further in another discussion, because I think it's valuable. I really would like to do it, and it's very educational for my folks and for yours as well, I'm sure. I have enjoyed this discussion, by the way, Terry. It's while ever I do lead with the con of the fluffy teddy bear character, the overly rude, overly obnoxious yellow teddy bear thing. At the end, if people want to follow that, by the way, they can. It's on that yellow ticker tape at the bottom of the screen there as to where you find Ted, and follow along. But no, look, credit to you for showing up, because actually there are far more, shall we say, publicly notable people who have yet to answer to me and who don't have the intestinal fortitude or testicular fortitude to do it. Precisely because I think a lot of them actually know who is behind the teddy bear, and they go, oh shit, no, I'm not going there because that guy will fucking wreck me. So credit to you for fronting up to it, and credit to you for holding your ground, even though your ground is actually not stable and will erode out from under you. I do absolutely take my hat off to you for that, and I look forward.
I think this is a belief I live by.
Yeah,
I'm not necessarily very good at it, but I live by it. That oftentimes our models are imperfect, and when there's experimental data that proves it wrong, I kind of get. It's hard to take, but I kind of get excited about it, because that means there's a more elegant solution in the background. And then there will be. So, yes, I am absolutely certain that 90% of what I firmly believe in the world that I have is going to be wrong and going to be disproven and have a better model. And people will say, what an idiot he was back then, as you are now. But I think that's the beauty of science and nature, right? We have to accept that we don't know everything and say, no, you know what, maybe my model was wrong.
Well, yes, but you also probably do need to accept, Terry, that I am the science. I'm safe and effective, and I shouldn't be questioned. It's been a pleasure.
You are not my wife.
Tell you what, Terry, you haven't met mine yet. Tell you. All right, look, it's been a pleasure. I really have enjoyed it. Let's do it again. Send me an email. We'll get it together, and we'll talk collaboratively, collegially, rather than butt heads. Let's actually.
I really want to get the incidence on these. I really want to get on some of these studies to see what was good and what was bad about them, because I think that I absolutely agree. Model can be changed. All right, thanks for coming on.
Right.
Greetings. Bye.
Right. See you then. All right. Well, that was fun, wasn't it, kiddies? Look, absolutely credit credit to Terry there. I've been proven wrong for the first time ever, because both myself personally and Ted also personally, individually, stated that we thought that this particular individual was yet another bloke without the courage of his convictions to actually front up for a spanking. He did. He fronted up. He got spanked, I think. You might view it differently, whatever. I think he held his ground pretty well. I give him a lot of credit. Respect to him for sure. He was, able to take it on the chin, and he was able to give me one or two as well. And that was good. Love it. Join me next time when either someone will be wrong on interwebs, or indeed we might be doing a collaborative discussion about the flaws and foibles of epidemiology, though. In the meantime, of course, that only leaves that one thing left to do, of course, which is to sing the song. Isn't it, Ted? Yes. Steak and eggs and eggs and steak. That's what you should have for your breakfast. Delicious. Eggs and steak and no fucking statins. Just making sure you heard. I think they got it, Ted. Join us next time.
Bye!
Hit the button, Ted. Anytime.